you to the second part of our high school reunion episode. As I said last week, if you tuned into us last week, we had so much to talk about with our guest, Carl Alvarez. He went to high school with us. He knows our high school experience. We had so much to talk about, and it was such a therapeutic conversation that I could not just edit it into one episode. It had to be a two-parter. So thank you for tuning into the second part of High School Reunion. Please follow, rate, and subscribe us on iTunes or wherever you listen to this show. And please let your friends know. Thank you for listening. Enjoy. So, Euphoria 2019, created by Ryan Levinson on HBO right now, guys, if you haven't seen it. It's a look at life for a group of high school students as they grapple with issues of drugs, sex, and violence. I really like this show because I feel like it displays a lot of empathy for Generation Z. They depict, images of 9/11, images of, people constantly being on their phone and seeing, horrifying images, climate change, bullying. So they show this as all these, different elements that are in the teenage atmosphere and how that constant pressure makes them feel... they feel crazed. It seems like the world is moving so fast and they don't even know how to interact with it really. And they seem so focused on trying to create an identity for themselves, I think, before then they're even ready to. They seem like so, they concentrate on how they want to be perceived and then don't allow themselves the flexibility to try different things. I just think of how teenagers now have Instagram pages, and I feel like their online brand is so concrete, it's so complete, and I just I at this point I have a hard time putting myself out there on social media and putting out a depiction of myself. I find it interesting to see all these teenagers in the show really deciding who they're gonna be at such a young age.
Yeah. When I was in the Philippines, I was on vacation with my cousin's daughters, and one of them is 20, the other one is in high school. But anytime I would post something, she's like, no, you got to give this to me first. Ooh. So she took my photos and it was a whole process of posting something. Mm-hmm. There's an app that she went through.
Which app do you know?
It's called Facetune.
Oh, yeah.
It's really...
I just recently learned, and that's a dangerous app.
It's dangerous.
That's a very... I don't want to get into it.
I didn't know you could post noses.
But
yeah.
I
could look
recently
like a
was
size 4.
Introduced to that, and I was at first I was so drawn to it just because I thought it was fascinating that you could just do that. But I think that's such a scary, especially in the world of social media, it's such a scary thing that we naturally are starting to we need to change this and that and this and that. And my friend was telling me he knows all these people that do it. I'm just who don't know, and no, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it can be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
To something. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable with the idea that there's there's one type of body that's ideal, that if you may have hip dips or your waist isn't as thin, that you have to create that through an app so that people will now it. It just distorts your idea of what beauty is.
Yeah.
And I think you need to be more comfortable. I'm actually okay with the idea of actors and actresses putting out photoshopped images of themselves. My problem with it is the people who are receiving it and thinking that is real. I understand that magazines or whatever want to put out this hyper perfect beauty, but then there's all these young people who think that is what we should be aspiring towards. So I think there just needs to be diversity in the images that people see. I love Rihanna's thick phase because she used to be just this really boyish body, very 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 skinny, and now she's with all these curves.
Yeah,
like,
she looks great.
She's just like, I just love like because it feels like a 30-year-old woman from the Caribbean. It's like, it makes sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, I just like want people to feel like whatever body you're in, like it can be okay. And if you're not okay with it, you can change it in the way that you want. But like, I just don't want there to be this pressure that like if you don't see your body depicted, then it's the wrong body.
That's why I'm saying it's not bad. It's just a slippery slope. Because I guess like in some way we're always editing in a way, like you said, magazines edit, and like that's a norm. And then there's filters, but now there's an app where it's like I'm literally going to change my jawline so it looks like this, or change my nose so it looks like this, where if I don't do that, then this picture then becomes not acceptable. Therefore that's how I'm supposed to look. That's what your brain's thinking. And I don't know, I think it could be a slippery slope, but
for sure.
Yeah, I don't love it.
No.
So you were watching the show right before you were recording.
Right before. It was my first time.
Yes.
I had seen promos, but I didn't necessarily know what it was about.
The promos are so interesting.
Yeah, it made it a lot more ethereal in the sense that, like, I guess what was happening is that I wasn't listening to what they were saying in the promos. I was just watching it in an aesthetic way, where she's like...
Because it's so visually stimulating.
It's beautiful.
Right.
It's beautiful.
That makes sense.
In that way. So when my first impression, and even the name itself, you know, it's like there's something whimsical about that word. Not necessarily what...
It's a sexy word.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's, so watching it earlier, it was a lot.
It's intense.
It made me really uncomfortable majority of the time. That's not. I loved it. It's a great show, and I like how real it was. But sometimes it was like, I need a moment. Like, this is something I have to like. It's gonna take a while to digest, because there's a lot of things that. Karen, you were saying that, like, you know, that wasn't my high school experience. I know this is an experience for people, but like, this is a lot, like the stuff that they go through. And I only just watched the first
45
most
minutes
of the first episode, so I can only imagine where it goes. But it's done well, and Zendaya's doing it. I was like, okay, girl, like I appreciate
amazing
her.
acting.
I don't think I've ever seen her in a role like that.
No,
I don't know if we have. No,
I mean, I don't watch her Disney show.
I didn't watch it either, but I just come a long way from Disney, I would assume.
Right. The only thing that I feel like I've seen her in is Spider-Man
and the
Greatest
rope,
Showman.
the Greatest Showman. I was about to say the rope.
She was really cute. In
She was
Greatest
cute.
Showman.
Right, but this is another world.
Yeah.
Completely.
She's not just being like a beautiful young girl,
Yeah.
who's
Right.
going for her dreams or whatever.
Yes. But yeah, that show, I don't know. I don't know if this is a judgmental, but it's like it almost breaks my heart sometimes watching it, because they're dealing with so much at such a young age, and it's almost like a norm for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like all I was worrying about was causing mischievous things, but I was worried about hanging out with my friends and doing board games and stuff like that. So it's just like, and drinking was like, we're gonna. Go crazy,
we're gonna
right?
So
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, I know. I look back and I'm like, I definitely had a campy, compared to other people, high school experience. But that was just a lot, I think.
Yeah.
And just some of those scenes, as a older guy, was a little uncomfortable to watch, because I didn't know how to feel.
Yeah.
As a audience member, but like as a viewer, and also, I don't know, like someone who tries to be socially aware of things. I don't know, it's just weird.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, Karen?
It reminded me a lot of the Harmony Korine movie Kids from the 90s.
I've actually never seen that.
Yeah, it's the same kind of like gritty, raw experience of kids who are, I mean, in quotations, urban experience. But it's like, it just feels like, it's viewing kids who are growing up too fast. It feels like they don't really have, like, they're just becoming so serious and adults so quickly, that they're losing a lot of like the silliness or the awkwardness that I had in high school. You know what I mean? Like kissing or having sex. Like in Euphoria specifically, like those teenagers are like super sexual and like really confident, like sexually. Like I was like, wow, I didn't come to like be that comfortable in my body like until like maybe like a few years ago.
No,
you know what I mean?
But I feel like we're pulling out specific characters from the show
that
are more sexually experienced. And I think that might relate back to like how I felt in high school, because they're like the people who are having sex, it does feel very loud, the fact that they're having sex. The people who aren't having sex, you're not aware of it at all.
Yeah.
So I did feel like I felt like this pressure that, like, if I wasn't, if I remained a virgin past high school, it was going to be a problem. So I feel like that it might be representative of how when there is, like, those popular kids who are obviously having sex, it makes it seem like everyone is in that case. Because there were other characters, like, you know, Zendaya's character, we don't have any mention of sexual experience. We don't really know if that's something that she's experimented with yet. With, what's her name, Kat's character, it seems like something that she wants to start, but, like, it doesn't seem like something that she's actually comfortable with. It's really, like, the couple that just broke up that are, like, the most adventurous sexually. But I feel like that's another thing, because I didn't have a boyfriend in high school. I felt like I couldn't experiment with those things as a single girl. Like, I would be perceived as, like, too slutty or whatever if I experimented with those things with somebody who I wasn't in a committed relationship with in high school, which sucks because, like, what if nobody is trying to date you in high school? Maybe you just want to try some shit. Anyway, those are a lot of thoughts. So I have a question. The drug use in this show seems pretty ubiquitous. Do you have any recollection of high school students using?
I was terrified of drugs. Like,
terrified.
Yeah.
Same.
Like,
but I'm sure it was definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I just don't remember being in my immediate.
Yeah.
I feel like the more we talked, the more we're like, these people are lame. But that was the real experience.
Well, that was our experience.
And I wouldn't take it back.
You know what I mean?
Wouldn't change it any other way. But yeah, I'm trying to think. People smoke weed.
I remember my first 420. I'm not saying whether or not Yes.
I'm
not saying.
I remember when we talked about
it. Exactly.
Yes.
So my
first
first 420.
time I did it was at your place.
Well, I'm not saying we did or did not. I'm saying, like, it was, like, my sophomore year, and I was aware that it was 420, and here we go again, Lori. Lori and I were like, it's 420, let's do this. And I'm trying to be, like, cool, like, yeah, I'm ready. And, like, I told our other friend, Nicole, like, I'm going to go smoke at Lori's. Not saying we did, okay, or did not, but it, like, broke Nicole's heart. Like, she, like, cried hysterically. And, like, I cried. And she's like, don't you know that I know so many people who have, like, done marijuana. And do you know what it's done for them? And, like, their lives are ruined.
Stop making it about you, Nicole.
Yeah.
Also, how? Because now that I'm a lot more educated on the matter,
exactly.
I'm curious to get those stories back.
Yeah.
Like, what did happen to these so-called people?
Do you remember my 15th birthday? When we were at the falls and we had gone to eat at, like, one of, like, I think it was that beer or steak place there was always, like, a new restaurant at that place in the falls. But we ate there, and then Karen brought these, like, airplane bottles of liquor. I remember it was Grey Goose.
Yes.
And we were, like, at Sharper Image or whatever that store is, like the electronics store.
Bomb-ass store, yes.
Yes. So we decided that was where we were going to drink. And I think it was me, you, and Carl that we all, like, were trying to take shots of
this
it.
tiny-ass bottle of Grey Goose.
And then Nicole, like, ran away and cried and was so upset. She's like, alcohol has ruined so many people in my family.
All I'm going to say is... Tables have tables.
Tables have tables. I can't wait.
Listen, we're not going to talk about what other people do now. Right. But I think it's more of a reflection, like, one, like, I grew up being scared of drugs and alcohol, like, terrified, you know what I mean? And, like, but two, I think that was also more about someone not being part of the fun that, like, wanted to make it about them.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed. I don't think I was scared of drugs because of Dare. I think Dare made me more excited. I remember the word. No, I swear to God, I'm not speaking to my drug use at all because I don't do drugs. I just like take Tylenol. But
yeah, all
I remember is like doing reports on like specific drugs and for health class, and they're like, oh, you know, you can pick what drug you want to do a report on, blah 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 blah. And I was like, I want to do a report on ecstasy because one of the symptoms of taking ecstasy is euphoria, and that sounds awesome.
Your eyes are so huge right now and so bright.
I'm done.
Euphoric.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Great.
Great.
So, I'm always intrigued by, like, parenting, right? Where there's this balance. Like, I'm kind of glad that I was, like, sheltered. Like, I did hold on to that innocence, you know, as a kid where, like, this wasn't my experience. And I'm thankful for that. And then it was until later that that was introduced in whatever capacity. But I'm always curious to know how free you want your kids, like how open you want them to be to this world, but also keep their innocence. I've always like go back and forth. If I were to have kids, like I'm always confused as that would I be, hey, this is the world, and you know, as long as I'm honest with them, we'll have that sense of respect, I guess. But I'm always like going back and forth of what do you guys feel? How do you feel about introducing them yourself or trying to hide them from certain things at an early age?
So I think it depends on what age we're talking about. When they're children, I think it is still important that you can be like a reference, like a guide when they're asking for, or it seems palpable that they need it. But don't be telling them exactly what to do to approach whatever problem. Okay. This is based on my own experience because I think that's how they build confidence, by not having just like an instruction book, and is like feeling like if they don't have the instruction book with it, they won't be able to figure shit out. Because I think it's important for kids to learn that they are self-sufficient and they will learn new solutions to new problems. But I also remember a program from Hidden Brain, it's one of my favorite podcasts, where they did studies where they showed that the children who were given the space to figure out their own problems became more self-sufficient in life because, and this is their theory, because the problems that we have in the 90s versus the problems we have now are completely different. Like, they've changed over time. Right. And they're going to continue to change. Like, the problems that our kids are going to have are going to be very different than the problems that we have. And they are going to have different ways of approaching those problems. And if you don't give them the space to figure that shit out, they're going to still apply the rules and instructions that you gave them that may no longer be relevant. Right. And they just need to learn that the tools are within them. They're highly skilled beings that have a very strong brain that can, like, figure shit out if we just are given the space to. Like, critical thinking is something that you really have to let them develop. I think when we're talking about teenagers, there is that fear of, like, I don't want them to be in a situation that is scary or violent. I don't want them to be in a situation where they're with a sexual partner and they feel like they can't assert their needs and then they're being taken advantage of. Like, I don't want that for them. but I can't be there every time they're there.
Right.
So you can give them information. It's like, I need you to know that there are people out there who might take advantage of you, and that consent is an important thing that you need to establish with your sexual partners, and these are the resources you need to know. But I can't be with you on every adventure that you have, and you don't want that either. Like, they have to start to develop their own sense of approaching problems, or they're always going to come back to mom every time something happens.
Yeah.
I need them to develop these skills, because I want them to be a person who can explore sex in a normal way, who can explore, like, life and career, whatever, without having to call me up every day, you know?
I feel, I guess I asked that question going back to, like, I've only saw a little bit of the show. I've only seen the first 45 minutes of the first episode. But I'm not going to say too much. But the moment where that daughter leaves to go meet up with that man, and the dad has no idea.
Yeah.
The dad has, and it breaks my heart, because it's just like, and even if you were to have, if let's say your own daughter would have had the idea, like, you found out, like, how would you let them? It's just, I don't know, it's always like a weird thing. Like, would you let them figure that out themselves, or like, it's just that was a big thing where, like, he was just so oblivious to her.
I know the scene you're talking about, and it also disturbs me, because I feel like his daughter is entering a very scary situation. Met somebody on the internet, and you never know what could happen from that. And especially as a transgender girl, like, there is a lot of danger meeting people on the internet. You never know what may happen. So, sorry. Are you okay?
The character's transgender?
Yes.
I didn't know that either.
So...
Whoa.
That's what she's taking shots of in her butt. And
that's why because there was I don't want to I don't put my business out there. Let's just say there was a noticeable app, and I'm like, that's not,
yes. Like,
that makes sense.
Exactly. And you can tell, like, it's interesting when she's in the app. I don't want to reveal too much, but she's, like, in the app, and she's, like, looking through, like, potential suitors, and it seems like she's trying to find, like, the safest option of the suitors. Because, like, I watched the show twice now, and there's some people who are, like, just showing, like, how big their dicks are, and being like, oh, I want to ravage you, and it looks like scary, and she's like, nah. And then she sees somebody who seems like, oh, I like femboys, and I like twinks, and I'm a dominant, but I like, I'm good to my people. Like, it just, like, seemed like a softer approach.
Well, this just changes everything then. Of course this person's, like, of course she's doing this now, because it's like, she doesn't have, I feel like she wouldn't have a lot of options where she feel completely herself to experiment with.
Yes.
With, wow.
Well, then maybe do we think the dad is oblivious, or do we think I'm going to let them figure this out, what they're doing?
I don't think the dad knows exactly what's happening, because if the dad knew that she was meeting up with people, I think she would tell her not to meet up in a hotel room
with,
like,
that much of a demand, with, like, there's so many elements.
Like, there was just, like, some factors if, like, the parent knew about it. I think that the parent would be very uncomfortable knowing that their daughter went into that situation, but you could tell that he is concerned about her well-being. I feel like there is some trauma from before, because he's like, well, you're in a new location, you're in a new town. He just, like, is telling her, like, express caution is, like, the only thing that he gives as advice.
I can't believe that passed right over my head. And
well, she's very passing. I think she probably took hormones from a young age.
Yes. And I'm wondering if the actress is transgender as well. I would assume so, right?
I think she is.
Is that a weird assumption to make?
I think she
Something
is.
to look into. But just that's curious.
Yeah.
Makes that situation so much more complex now, I think.
And seeing the whole thing play out, I am definitely very worried for her. And I think that's part of, like, what the show wants to evoke for you. It's like, you just want to take these people in your arms, and you're like, no, don't do it, blah, blah. But that's something that it's inappropriate to do for teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think the teenagers that were super sheltered and their parents, you know, had to, like, go with them on dates and shit. Like, they were not equipped to handle college as well as the people who might have, like, got themselves in sticky situations but figured it out. Like, I don't want my kids to, like, be in danger, obviously. I want them to be okay, and I want to give them, like, I want to encourage the skills that are going to make them, like, the radars come on in their brain and be like, this is not a safe situation, right? I hope that I will instill those traits in my kids, but sometimes they have to learn for themselves.
Yeah. In regards to, like, parenting, I would want to... Well, I'll say this. Growing up, I wish my parents were more involved or, like, communicated more, like, just talked to me more about things. But then I've also seen friends whose parents talk about everything with them, including my, like, personal life. Like, I would have a friend who was comfortable making jokes at the table with their parents about, like, my dating life. Mm-hmm. Or even, like, sexual stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a joke.
Right.
And it's, like, very uncomfortable. But I think the lack of communication from my parents kind of resulted, like, in a lack of confidence in myself, like, in facing the world and facing other people. And I would want to instill more of, like, a confident human being, I think, as a parent.
And how would you go about that? Is that more communicating? Is that what you mean?
I think communication has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And, like, also, like, giving them a platform to express whatever they wanted to express, right, and taking it seriously and taking it into consideration rather than, like, treating them like they're crazy or, like, not normal.
Right.
And my father in particular just kind of, like, was like, it's out of the question. You're not dating people. So I feel like I did everything in secret because I wasn't allowed really to date, right? Like, so if he wanted to give me advice or had observations of, like, the things I was doing, then maybe he could have, but, like, there was nothing that he could have known about because he made it such a ban. It was like, no, like, I remember once when I was in middle school, he's like, if a boy I think it was a freshman year or whatever, if a boy comes around, I'm gonna hit him with that machete outside or whatever. Like, he was just, like, very sex negative. It was just, like, not something that he was comfortable with at all. While my mother just didn't really want to discuss it. I think, like, my mother really wanted to separate that part from herself. Like, she knew it was happening, like, she knew something was happening, but she just didn't want to be a participant. I just wish she opened up the communication so that I knew she could be a resource if I wanted to discuss that with her. Going back
to what Karen was saying.
Yeah, because I think it's important that the lines of communication are open. You can't force conversations onto your kids because these teenagers are like, what? Blah. Like, you can't make them care about things that they don't want to care about in that moment or whatever. Just make sure that they know that you can talk to them about anything.
What's fascinating about that, I think, is also, like, it depends on if you were identified at the time as a male or female. Like, I had a completely different experience. Like, my mother wanted to know everything, wanted to talk about everything, and I was not about it. I was like, no, I was, I guess, like your mother, where I wanted separation of church and state. Like, let's talk about grades, let's talk about if I'm okay, my feelings, but when it comes to, like, taboo, what I consider to be taboo subjects, definitely was out. And she, to this day, I'm still like that with my mom. Like, and I'm wondering, is that because I'm a boy, you know, I was the son, as opposed to, I'm curious to know, I'm sure my sister would probably say something differently. So that's that.
Yeah. Like, I didn't know what it was like to, like, have, like, the father that would be so involved and, like, you know, stand up to the boyfriend or, like, you know, like, if the boyfriend would meet them and be like, these are the rules for dating my daughter. Like, part of me
wish that. You ever wish you had that?
Part of me kind of wishes I had that because I feel like not having someone speak up for me has lingered onto, like, how I approach myself in relationships, as if, like, I'm not worth, like, being protective over.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Value. Okay.
And I think that's why a lot of my relationships with men have failed, because, like, I don't feel like I'm worth, like, speaking up for or being an advocate for. You know what I mean?
Damn, you're placing a lot on your dad right now.
Yeah. I mean,
this is what therapy will do for you.
We're moving on to sex education. I feel like this show is contrasting the show before. Karen was saying how the kids in Euphoria seem to be so sexually confident or sexually adventurous, while the kids in sex education own their vulnerability and confusion in the whole sex process. Carl, are you familiar with the show?
I am. Yeah, I've seen the season.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm really excited to talk about this one.
Yay!
Actually.
Okay, I'm so happy because I love sex education.
It's so good.
It's
for so many reasons.
Yeah, it started in 2019. It's set in Britain. I think it's set in Wales, actually.
Oh.
It's a gorgeous
Beautiful.
setting.
Like the guy's backyard. No.
Oh, like
jealous.
so much green and trees and mountains. Like, I would have loved that setting to grow up in. I mean, I grew up in Miami, but whatever. It was really nice. So the concept of the show is a teenage boy with a sex therapist mother teams up with a high school classmate to set up an underground sex therapy clinic at school. I really wish that this show existed when I was in high school, because I feel like I got my sex education, in quotation marks, from my health classes, from Cosmopolitan, and from Sex and the City. But in those shows, they might speak to, like, shameful things that can happen in sex, how sex can go wrong, or, like, tips. But I don't feel like they speak too much about how to build intimacy with a partner, how to feel more comfortable with the act. And I think the show embraces the idea that, like, sex is a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be a thing that is scary or shameful or something that we should be avoiding as a topic for high school students. I feel like they treat this how I wish it was treated in every school, where this is like kind of a training ground where you can feel more comfortable experimenting, and then by the time you're in college, you know how to ask for what you want in an environment that's actually probably even more dangerous, because people, I mean, as we said earlier, we didn't drink very much when we were in high school, but in college, people were definitely drinking, and that's a place where when you're losing your senses and you're not able to be completely aware of everything that's happening, it can be very dangerous to be in a sexual situation where you're not comfortable asserting your needs and letting people know that you're not comfortable with something. So I love the show. It's so sex positive. And I love that the women in the show are encouraged to seek out their pleasure. It's so great.
I think so. It's interesting because when you hear the name sex education, for those who haven't seen it, like I thought of a different, thank you, thought it was going to be a completely different show. Like, I did not expect what I got. I thought it was very clever and interesting. But, like, it's funny because I don't think they necessarily educate you on sex. There's, like, tips here and there from, like, a narrative perspective, like, from in the writing. But, like, I'm going to compare it to Big Mouth, but I feel like compared to Big Mouth, I feel like Big Mouth is more of an education situation where it's like, this is what's happening, and this is because it's about younger kids that are going through puberty. But what I really appreciate about sex education is what you said, is that it finally makes sex, it's not a taboo situation. That sex at the end of the day is a thing, and for whatever reason, where in time we've decided to make it this taboo conversation. But I like that sex education is like, yeah, it's a little awkward. Yeah, you're not going to know what you're doing sometimes. Yeah, it's great. Yes, women do have, pleasures that they want to seek out, whether they're in a relationship or not. And I think it's not even just about sex. It's also about, like, just that black gay character, I think, his journey, identifying himself, and not even in a sexual way, because he'll make all these jokes, but there's not a lot of sexual things happening with him. I don't want, like, in the show, but he's going through his own journey at what it means to be this black dude in a very white dominated, like, it's just very, it shows a lot, just even more than sex, I think. But I love the fact that it makes sex not this taboo subject.
Well, it killed me, but it was, I felt like it was realistic, because, like, I love that not every situation that he's in is like a dangerous situation. Like he does have support sometimes, but I feel like it's accurate in showing like how easily the pendulum can shift, and then now you are in an extremely threatening situation,
and it could happen within a split second. And I thought they did such a good job at capturing that, where 1 minute he could be himself and do whatever, and no one's really paying attention, and the minute your blood starts to boil because you're like you're scared for the character. And I think it's such I'd assume what's someone can experience at any notice. I think that's a good job. That I like what you said about the whole woman. Maybe that's not my place to talk about that, but I think that's a very important thing now. I think this idea of like women taking charge of their sex life and their needs and their wants. So
it's definitely your place to talk about it. Everyone should be talking about women fighting for their pleasure or getting their pleasure.
So the character's name is Eric. I just bought
Eric?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just to throw that out there.
Yeah.
I think there's awesome characters in this show. They're all very layered. Like, they're not just types. They're
3D, all of them.
All of them, yeah.
So good.
Like, even, like, the popular girls learn so much about, like, their mechanics and insecurities. Yes, the show's great.
And it's genuinely funny and, like, a good time.
Yes.
Whereas, like, it depends what you want. Do you want, like, Euphoria could be like, all right, we're about to get real, but buckle up, it's going to be a ride. And then you have a completely different feel, but just as important, like, this idea of, like...
Just as real.
Yeah, just as real in its own way. Because, like, very relatable, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I like that they depict characters... not just in sexual situations, but the character Ola, she's like the half Swedish, half black character. She's adorable. So
love her.
I love that she tells Otis straight up. She's like, "Do you like me? Because I like you. I think you're really funny."
She's too cool for school.
I'm obsessed with that.
What a I didn't see that episode.
When he made that mistake, I was just like, oh my, like she's too, like I'm in love with her. Like she
just seems very self-assured. She seems to like really know who she is, because for like to imagine a teenager who can say those things so clearly and directly, like it's almost impossible to even think of, because we were just playing so many games, we didn't know how to say how we really felt.
So many games.
So many games.
Too many games.
I feel like I'm still playing games. Like, that is so admirable right now.
Yeah,
like, I love hearing that.
And not, like, it's going back to what you're saying. It's a great character. Like, you really have a soft spot for a lot of these characters, which makes the show so likable, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Even, like, I love that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, even, like, characters you normally... Character arc that you normally like types, like the jock guy. I don't know his name. The swimmer. Whereas, like,
I know who
do you still find he may Jackson? Like, you still feel for him in certain aspects and what he's going through and all that stuff. And it's just like they do a good job at really not only humanizing but like making each character likable in their own way.
Yeah, they're all dealing with their own struggle. It makes it feel like, even if you feel like you're the only one that's dealing with the situation and you feel alone in your problems, just know that there's other people dealing with problems of their own, and you might not want to switch with them. You might not want to have their problems. Like, it's important to know that everyone is struggling and everyone has their own burden that they're dealing with, and even if it seems like they got it all figured out, it's almost certainly not the case, especially when we're talking about high school students. I loved the character, is her name? I think I put her here. Oh, I love the character Lily.
Lily is?
She was the kind of skinny, gawkish character.
The one that was on a mission.
Yes, on a mission to get that dick. I very much...
couldn't tell her nothing. She was matter of fact.
Yes.
Another person who was like, this is what I want.
Yes.
This is how we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want it, I'm on to the next.
I should, like, rewatch this. I feel like I only watched, like, 2 episodes. But I love hearing about all these female characters.
You were, like you've
fighting
been inside
for
this
what
show
they
for
want.
a long time.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Is there a reason? Oh, you don't know why?
No, I don't know why. I don't know.
I think, like, some people didn't fall in love with the first 2 episodes, like the first one or the second one. But I think by the time you get to the third or fourth, you're, like, really into it. You get
What's great about the show is that it starts off very, like, light, very, like, but there are moments of, like, where they do get a little deeper than you expect it to.
Yeah.
Like with Eric's journey, and, like, her journey, I think, what's her name, Lily?
Yeah.
Hers is not as, like, deep and, like, but it's still, like, something, like, to consider. Like, this girl has... I mean, she's there for a lot of comic relief stuff, but, like, that's real. That's real. Someone wants to fulfill that need, and she's going to go about doing it.
Yeah, and she expresses something that I expressed earlier in the show, where you have that feeling that everybody else is having sex, and if you don't do it by a certain time, that there's, like, a ticking clock, that by the time you're in college, you're going to be the only weirdo who hasn't done it.
Right.
I feel like that was a lot of people's fears, and I think there was more people who felt that way than people who were having sex in high school, probably.
Can I also say, since we're talking about character, the mother. Remember I told you, like, she reminds me of my mom. Like,
really?
Yes, my mom. The person who wants to talk about things, tries to be private, but not really, because she'll go through your stuff if she needs to, for the better. But, like, she reminds me of my mother, which I love that character. She's a great actress and, like, also very beautiful.
Yeah, she's from the X-Files.
Yeah,
I love this. I wish y'all could see Carl's realization.
That is, that's the same woman.
Yes, I'm telling you.
I think I love her now. I think she's a lot more...
Scully is her name, right?
Wow,
she is in Sex Education?
Yes.
She's the mother.
Gillian Anderson?
Karen. You did not do your homework this week.
She didn't really watch it. Were you cooking while you were watching the show?
Sex Education. No, honestly, Sex Education was probably something that I watched while I was cleaning my room.
Right, that's what I was saying. That's so easy
and
to do.
I didn't get to really watch it.
Yeah, it deserves your full attention,
right.
honestly. Yeah. It's a deeper show than you might expect, because it kind of seems like, what's the word? Kind of...
The name in itself, like I said, when I heard Sex Education, it wasn't something that I was, like, screaming to watch. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to watch this,
Yeah, because it seems like it's for a different audience, right? Like, I don't need sex education. I'm good. Mm-hmm. But
I know all things.
Oh, yeah, I know everything.
Everything.
But, like, I heard a lot of good reviews about the show. And I do like shows that depict sex in a positive way. So when I heard that, then I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. And I was not disappointed at all. I feel like the characters are really well written. The dialogue is very authentic. And I feel like there's a lot of important questions that are posed by the show. And I have to say, I'm really sorry you didn't see the scene, Karen, because it makes me really happy.
I'm wondering if this... Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a character, Amy, who she has boyfriends. She seems pretty popular.
I was literally just thinking about this right before you said it. Like, no joke. I was literally like... Oh, okay, continue. Sorry. I was literally just thinking about that.
She's already having sex. She's having sex with her boyfriend. But then she has one boyfriend who seems to be more thoughtful about her pleasure.
He finds pleasure in
invoking pleasure in his partners. Yes. He says that specifically. So beautiful. He's like, that's a beautiful thing to have a high school student say. And I think, like, the show makes it aspirational. Like, if a teenager was watching it and they saw that, they know that that's the good guy. Like, that's the guy I want to be like, and not the guy who's just, like, whatever and not caring. But she doesn't know. When she gets that question, she's like, I don't know. Like, she says it's so, she's so, like, honest. I love her character.
I love her character, too, because it's like, you normally wouldn't like that character.
Yes.
But I love all of them.
She's so silly, but she's honest as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, she says everything that's in her head with no filter. Like, she's just, like, completely, like, unabashedly herself. So, she sees Otis's character, and she's like, what do I do? How do I find out? And she's like, well, have you ever masturbated? And she's like, no, I have sex all the time. And I remember, like, me being, like, a teenager and thinking, like, oh, why do I have to masturbate? I'm going to experiment with boys. When what I need to be doing is experimenting with myself.
Yes.
First and foremost. So there's a scene where she's like, okay, I guess I'm going to start, like, touching myself. And then she just, like, starts, like, fucking herself all over the room. And you can tell she's just, like, falling in love with her whole own body. And it's just such a beautiful, like, celebratory moment. I'm just like, yes. And then, like, the next time she sees her partner, she's like, I want you to do this, and this.
Oh my god.
And what did she say? He's like, done. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like when there are shows where they depict like, oh, what are you interested in? What are your fantasies? A lot of times it's like something weird. It's like, oh, I'm into, I mean, nothing's really weird. Like, let me be sex positive. But like, there's things that seem like out of the, you know, the realm of their experience and like feel very foreign to them. So they're like, I don't know, I don't want to do whips and chains, or I don't want somebody to pee on me or whatever. Like it feels like it goes too far when she's literally just like, I want you to hold me this way, or just like touch
this
my
part, and at this specific time
yes.
I need to do this, and we're good to go.
Blow in my ear or whatever. Like she like was so like
she sounds like my hero.
It was so cute.
I didn't even see this cute. I saw her as like she was taking charge. The way she said it, she was like, I want this. She was like, oh, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this. Let's go. He was like, oh yes, right, let's go.
He's like, I'm on it.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, Captain.
Because I feel like it's one thing to know what you like and like, you know, like spend time masturbating, getting to know your body and knowing what pleases you. Because I know what I like, right? Mm-hmm. But it's another to be able to express that. Mm-hmm. Like that's a hurdle that I feel like I myself am still like struggling with, like telling people what I want. But I know what I want. Mm-hmm. But it's hard, you know? So it's nice that this character has found a way to do both.
I agree.
It's so inspirational.
This show just has like a little bit of fun, a little bit of real, a little bit of like great character development. It's just, and there is education without actually preaching. Mm-hmm. You know,
I'm excited.
That's a learning moment without having to be like, let's talk about this.
Yes.
You know? So
I feel like Big Mouth is more. They take on more of that educational,
yes. like you're watching one of those videos from high school.
Yes.
Let's talk about, you know, pubic hairs and like, you know, stuff like that.
They do it in a humorous way.
Very humorous way, like.
But it does feel like I'm getting a lesson.
Yes.
And I think it's a good lesson. I think a lot of kids need to be getting that lesson. Right. I think sex education integrates those lessons pretty seamlessly into a narrative that's very compelling. Yeah. It's a good show. I'm sorry that you haven't really enjoyed it.
Now we've inspired her.
I'm
now
very
she will.
excited.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to watch it.
Do you feel like the health classes we attended in high school were sufficient in preparing us for sex?
I was just about to ask.
If not, how could they be improved?
Gosh.
All I remember from my sex was that they just told us about the ST at the time.
Right.
Yes. That's all. I don't remember. Oh no, that's not true. In fifth grade, they separated the boys and they separated the girls, and they played a video. I don't even think the teacher was in the room for it. So it was like, and it was literally like this is a human body. This is the male body.
What do you mean they separated the boys and the girls?
The guys were in one room and the girls were in another room.
That's stupid.
I mean, that was my experience. I don't know.
I mean, but you know what I mean? Like, everyone needs to be present for everything.
Well, it was the same video, but I think they thought, you know what it is? I think they just thought it'd be a less distraction situation with like boys and girls, like they'd be like, oh, that's you, that's as opposed to just watch the thing.
Okay.
It wasn't like you guys are watching this and you guys are watching that.
Okay.
And this is 4th and 5th grade, you know. And it was more so about the puberty, going through puberty and whatnot, and just like these are the organs. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily obviously talking about sex.
Right.
But then that's the only thing I can think in mind is that, and then leading into high school was the health class. It was just STDs. It wasn't even about
STDs.
sex. It was just like the aftermath of what unprotected sex leads to, which is all that health class is.
So problematic. It's about that. I remember like STDs and then just putting a condom on a banana.
And but like the most obscene pictures, like this is gonna happen to your body. Like I look back at those pictures, I'm like, that's very
sex
dramatic.
Negative.
Exactly.
Also dramatic.
I wish there was more of like sex empowerment, like education.
Right.
I think it's similar to DARE, the way that they do their health classes. Like, we're going to tell you all the things that could happen from you engaging in this activity that will be negative, and nothing that could be positive, or how you can prevent the negative things.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like DARE has to be like that because it is, to this day, an illegal substance. That's the only reason why. You know?
Right.
I think they have to be like, well, the aftermath of this, you're doing something illegal. Whereas sex is not illegal.
Exactly.
It's just taboo.
Exactly.
So, which is dumb.
I don't agree with either approach, but like I understand like how there could be a distinction.
And weird enough, so even though it was illegal, I think I got more education from DARE. Like, these are the aftermath of it, but this is the actual drug, and this is the actual this is what it does. This is where, I'm not saying like where you can get it, but I got a lot more information about the drug itself as opposed to sex.
Right.
And my body as well, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the most beneficial class that I got was actually when I was in college. I took a sex class in college, and it was the first time I saw a map of the female region, like, outside of the body. Because I think from the time I was in 4th grade, I understood the reproductive organs as, like, the uterus, the fallopian tubes, whatever, but never saw vagina, labia minora, labia majora. No, I don't think I saw like a map.
You didn't
of the
take like a human growth and anatomy or human growth and development?
I don't think I saw like the clit and like the hood and all that mapping.
That's the thing. Yeah, like
I mean, I saw it was a very like a clinical way, but it wasn't like a.
I feel like we did not talk about the vagina enough.
Oh no, for sure not. For sure not.
You know, in high school.
And I feel like people would like submit questions, but a lot of times they were like humorous questions. I feel like I remember somebody like, "Can you get turned on from a tampon or whatever?" I think there wasn't. I don't know if we had like an abstinence only education because I don't remember them being like, "Don't have sex at all" or whatever. But I do remember like if you don't want to make sure you don't get any STDs, like that's the best way to do it. But they don't empower people to figure out this situation. Like, I feel like they just kind of bring fear into the situation.
Right.
Also, their solution, which that even in itself is a problematic word, is solution to all this is abstinence. That was like the pyramid. That was the end goal. You don't want any of this? Just don't do it.
Right.
You know, that was the lesson learned.
Yeah.
It wasn't that, sex is going to happen, so if so, that it's don't do it. If you're going to do it, if you're those people that are going to do it, then do this.
Bad.
But at the end of the day, you should be doing abstinence. That's the message I think that the health class invoked. At least my own experience. I don't know about you guys, but...
Well, I wish they talked more about the pleasures of sex. Mm-hmm. You know what honestly... Especially,
Carl's
I wish they encouraged women... And I know this might be really dangerous, but like encouraging women to really seek pleasure in sex too. Like it was never presented. Like sex to me was never presented in that kind of way. It was like, this is an act where this happens and these are the possible results, repercussions, consequences. Like we're not really educated on how it can really be a beautiful thing and help a person's mental stability, honestly. Like, masturbation is extremely important.
Yeah.
And women also need to know how to masturbate.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you need to, like, put girls in a separate class to teach them how to masturbate, I'm, like, all for that, honestly. I'm serious.
No, I'm just thinking, because it's also like, the guys never got a masturbation class or anything.
I know.
And I'm trying to think if there was ever, because I even as a man was like, as a guy was like, it was told just don't do it. And there were teachers that
exactly.
were like, so it wasn't even like a male versus, I mean, I will say there's a lot more repression in general with women. Mm-hmm. That's for damn sure. But I feel like it would have been nice to be like, because I don't know why, did you guys have women instructors? Or
I did.
You did? Because I always had male instructors, and that's not because it was a division situation. I remember the guys being like, yeah, it's great. So I did get that sense as a guy, like, okay, there is, he enjoys it. He would be like, yeah, it's great. But these were the cool, hip teachers that would voice that. But they then would talk about the repercussions and stuff like that. But I think it would have been a lot more empowering for a woman to be like, yeah, it's great. Therefore, then go along and explain.
I feel like if we were taught from a young age that we were, like, we had more control over our own pleasure, that it wouldn't be such a thing of desperation. You know what I mean? For people to seek out in other people, too.
Yeah, I think if they empowered us to find our pleasure in ways that didn't require another person, I think there's this concern about people from Catholic traditions because that's actually against their beliefs. Like, you're not supposed to...
I was just thinking that, yeah.
You're not supposed to masturbate, so they're worried about parents coming back and being like, you taught my kid this, I never gave you permission to teach my kid this, blah, blah. And I do think that parents are uncomfortable with the idea of their kids going getting their sexual pleasure. They're like, whoa, that's my child. Like, that shouldn't be something that they're looking for. But honestly, being 18 is a arbitrary definition of what an adult is, right? Like, you're gonna have these sexual urges naturally from the time you're like 13. Puberty, it's coming. Like, you're gonna feel them, and you need to start having those conversations in middle school about like the fact that they're having these feelings and those are natural, and there are ways to navigate those feelings that don't require you putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to also just like this is all with a sense of this is the religious aspect too, you know, where it's like their religion forces them to have to repress these things. So it's just like, how do you deal with? I'm curious to know how someone who would want to give that open space to talk, but also be like, yeah, but it's also bad. So like, curious to know what kind of conversation that would be like.
Yeah, I feel like it is difficult because there are so many things that are political about education.
Yeah.
Like sex education in a lot of schools isn't taught at all because it's become a political thing. In Georgia, basically their sex education is like, if you have sex, you die. Or if you have sex, you become a little dirty shoe. And now you're dirty little women who's a dirty shoe.
Dirty
right.
shoe.
Like, legitimate.
A dirty shoe.
There's a clip.
Chancleta would be in Miami.
There's a clip of this, like, shoe. They try to do this metaphor where this guy and girl are going out, and the girl's like, oh, I wanted to give you these shoes. And he's like, great. He opens up the box, and then he's like, ew. He's like, looks like the whole football team has been through these.
Ew.
Yes! I swear to God, that's the official video they use in fucking Georgia.
Absolutely not.
Have you seen this video?
Yes, they were talking about it in some other news program where they were discussing about sex education. And it's fucking disgusting because, first of all, the implication there is like the sex is only for the guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's just like, that's not a inclusive disrespect. And so it's disrespect on one party.
And pull that aside, none of this discusses same-sex sex at all. Like, there's no discussion of, like,
that's
how the mechanics
thing.
of, like...
Exactly.
Like, it's just so heteronormative, education.
But also, they're hyperbolizing. Why did they go from, I had sex with my boyfriend or sex, to the whole football team? Like, you're just going...
It's like enforcing the Madonna whore situation. Right. You can only be a saint or you're a whore.
Exactly, and that is problematic.
It's very problematic, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's also like so old school, like an old school way of thinking where sex is strictly for like reproductive purposes. You know what I mean? Like
marriage or for like
or for the guy.
Partner.
Yeah.
Like it's a gift for the one guy. Don't you want to not ruin it for that one guy?
Right.
Blah blah blah. And it's gross because, again, they're not talking to men when they're saying this, right? Like, they're saying, like, man, we're not including you in the conversation. And in that little vacuum, like, in that gap of you not being discussed, you can go do whatever the hell you want because we're not caring about your being a dirty shoe to a woman.
This is a bit of a tangent. But I'm just curious, have you guys seen the first episode of the new season of Black Mirror?
No.
Okay, well, that's for another day. But
what else did I want to say?
I like what you said about the whole thing, just the heteronormatives thing, because nowadays, especially that Pride's coming up, that's like another thing is like, there's only two ways to have, there's only this and that, and there's a lot more other things that, you know, that happen between a guy and a guy, girl and a guy, multiple people, transgender, like there's a lot of, also it's all, like, sex doesn't have to be this, like, I think it's a lot more than just penetration as well.
Yes.
I think.
Exactly.
And that goes back to me what Karen was saying. It's just like there's so much more to sex than just penetration. It's this whole mental, mind, body, spirit thing that have to do with that. So, and if you don't want to necessarily talk about the actual penetration, there's other things that people are very curious about.
And that is something I do want to integrate into classes because I feel like I had all these urges and I kept putting myself into situations that ultimately didn't feel good to me. And at some point, I was like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep feeling like I want to hook up with guys when obviously it doesn't make me feel good? And then it wasn't until I had pleasurable sexual experiences much later into my 20s that I realized it's like, I was missing an essential component of having sex, and that's being comfortable and knowing what you want and asserting those things, and being with a partner that you can trust those things with, like that you feel completely comfortable to be yourself with, and you have that connection. Like that takes a lot of different factors, and I really do believe it was partially me like being comfortable with masturbation, because like when I was in high school, I used to read them Zane books. I was all into
Zane.
I loved Zane. My dad found one, and he's like, "This is not good for ladies to be reading. Like you should," and then whatever. I remember I was in middle school, and like he caught me like greeting myself, and he was like, "That's not what ladies do," or whatever. Like he was very against it. He's from a culture where they legitimately cut off clitorises because they don't believe in women pleasure. So like
it's crazy. Yeah.
So it's just like it's very important that we recognize all of those elements. If we're not going to have a class where you learn how to masturbate, can we at least discuss the fact that you need to know what feels good to your body, and that you should be with a partner that you feel comfortable with and that you can trust to, like make you feel good. Like it just can't be with just anybody.
Yeah.
I have a question. Did we have a show around our time that like talked about sex? Like I can't think.
So it's funny because when I was thinking about this show, doing this episode, I thought about when we went to New York right after high school and saw the Gossip Girl billboard, and yes,
and we copied it, yeah.
So it was like from the first season of Gossip Girl, and Blake Lively and I think
it's Penn Badgley or the other guy, the blonde guy.
Yeah, the other guy are having sex for the first time, and it's illicit. It's not supposed to be happening. And she has this like big orgasm face, and like, by the way, these are supposed to be 16-year-olds, and like him, and like this is the billboard.
I remember that.
Yeah, so like I feel like sex was very glamorized in the high school shows I saw, and it did seem like you were saying with Euphoria, it seemed like they knew what they were doing and they were very confident. I mean, Gossip Girl, you're talking about like what we might have thought is like the ideal high school experience because they are rich and then like live in New York and like kind of do whatever they want, don't really answer to anybody. So it seems like this is like what we might be aspiring to, but I wish they navigated it with some confusion. They were just adults. They were just like pretty adults
playing kids.
Yes. Well, that's what I loved about Booksmart. Like they showed, like this young woman, she masturbates. She has sex with her panda. Yeah. Which, you know what I'm like? When I saw that, I was like, you know what? That's real.
Yes.
Like sometimes girls like stick things up there because they don't know like how to please themselves, and this is how they get off. Like, you know what I mean? And that's so relatable. But also she has sex or she ends up hooking up with this girl in the bathroom, and she completely misses like the clit. Like she doesn't know like how to like please the girl. And it's just, I don't know, like it's just so realistic. And I feel like if we talked about sex like as if it wasn't just like a scientific thing and approached it with a more holistic approach or like tantric experience, I feel like a lot more young women would know, like, would not be in situations where they're having sex with someone and and be able to say like, well, this is right, this is not right. Like, I feel like I have been in so many situations where I was in a sexual situation and I didn't know that. Like, I just expected that was supposed to happen. You know what I mean, though?
I feel like there were situations I didn't know how to get out of. Like, I was in a place where I was like, oh, I don't like how this is going. I want to stop. And I felt this pressure of, like, I can't stop. I already put myself in this situation.
No, it's real.
Exactly.
It's so real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only show that I can think about back then was... I didn't watch it, but like, remember the American Life of a Teenager? But that wasn't about sex. That was
Secret Life of a Teenage Daughter.
Sure.
Yeah,
that was just the aftermath of like when you shouldn't do. That's another show that's like, well, this is what happens.
It seems like a PSA. Of like, if you have sex, you're
but I can't think of
pregnant.
like a show that was like, hey, sex is a thing and it's good and it's positive and
Yeah, because, like, I think about, like, American Pie is, like, a movie that was, like, out when we were in middle school or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
that wasn't too bad. That was, like, a little bit... that was more sex positive, I think.
Like, it depicted characters having sex, but, like, when the character, like, masturbates, then, like, his father walks in, or, like, he masturbates with the pie.
Such a shameful thing.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of shame around.
Well, the father doesn't shame him. He's just embarrassed.
Yes, but, like, it's comedic portrayal, right?
Okay,
like, it seems like something like, oh, you don't want that to happen to you.
Right.
Like, whatever.
Like, oh, it's funny. He's masturbating.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
It definitely isn't, like, the worst depiction. It didn't, like, show, like, I didn't feel like there
that was
like,
one with if I don't exactly, because I think the girl, she was very about it, and he wasn't. She was like, I want this. Another kind of like similar to the Lily character, just, you know, not as well developed and humorous, but like I remember that main character was like, I really want to have sex with you, and I want this to happen, and something with the tuba. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, she was from band camp.
I stuck a flute up my pussy.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous.
Right.
I gotta just say that right now.
I think it goes without saying, American Pie was meant to be over the top, ridiculous. Like,
yes, but I appreciate having media that, like, people can turn to and actually learn something from it.
Yeah.
Because it's cool to have, like, some comedic depictions of sex, but when there's a void, when there seems to be, like, not a place where people can learn more about how to be happier, more intimate with their partners, then it's, you know, it's not as, I don't know, I would prefer it to have been like that. Like, I wish I grew up with all these shows being available. Anyway, thank you, Carl.
Thank you for having me.
Whoa, Carl Alvarez. Find him roaming New York City.
Just for the record, everyone, Nicole keeps telling me to get closer to the mic because apparently I don't know how to speak to a mic after all these years of performing arts school. So just let everyone know.
You just want to talk to us. Like,
right. I was feeling, you know, intimate.
Real
but
genuine and authentic.
thank you guys for having me. It was definitely a good time. And I'm glad, you know, this is the group that was able to have this discussion.
Yeah, you were a great contributor. I feel like we had a lot of wonderful things to discuss, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Yeah, quality time. Karen, do you appreciate Carl? Because you're not saying anything.
No, I really appreciate Carl. Carl both of you guys were a huge part of my high school identity.
Yes, I agree.
So I'm very happy to have discussed all of these themes and topics with people who knew me back then and who know me now.
Me too. It was wonderful. Thank you for tuning in to Cinema Therapy, the podcast for people who know nothing about life but all about TV. Tune in next week and hear us some more. Thanks. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.